Are you ready? Probably not. You want RGB? You're gonna get it. Today's all about the freaking MSI GE63 Raider Mystic RGB. Let's jump right into it. First off, full disclosure, we did do a review on the original Raider, the GE63, which you can find the link for in the description. Okay, so this is the updated GE63 Mystic RGB. And the main differences between this one and the previous model are its brand spanking new 8th generation i7 processor and the RGB, people, the RGB. I'll try and contain myself until the end of the segment. But aside from all of those things, at a first glance, it doesn't look that different. Whoops! Yes, it does! The RGB! Okay, I'm done. Let's talk about it in a little bit more detail. And first on the list is RGB. You guys were never ready. The world was not ready for this. No one was ready. It features the same awesome SteelSeries 3 keyboard that the previous Raider had, with its per-key RGB customization, awesome effects like the cooldown timer and responsive keys, and this thing has 16.8 million colors, just like the previous Raider. But what if you could take all of that and put it on the roof of your laptop? If people were questioning your commitment to the RGB gods before this day, there will be no doubt in their minds after this. The Mystic light strips on top of the GE63 Raider are awesome. You can program all the exact same effects as the SteelSeries keyboard to 24 different zones. So that's ridiculous. For RGB, it gets 10 out of 10. And now, aside from all of that external beauty, it's still packing some pretty impressive internal hardware. The cherry on top of this RGB cake is its brand spanking new 8th generation i7 8750H 2.2 GHz 6-core 12-thread CPU. Let's take a closer look at it. The 8th generation processor boasts an incredible 40% multi-core performance boost, with the single core being around 25%, which is an astounding improvement from the 7th generation processors. On top of that, we have the very impressive GTX 1070 graphics card, which can handle pretty much most games with decent frames per second on ultra settings, so that's really nice. We also have 16 gigabytes of RAM included, which is absolutely fine for gaming and for working, and you can always upgrade it further. And lastly, it comes with a 1 terabyte HDD and a 256 SSD, so you're completely covered on all your storage needs as well. Moving on swiftly from those beautiful internals, the MSI GE63 Raider Mystic RGB features one of MSI's awesome TN panels, which I am just a huge fan of. They're one of the better laptop panels that I've really seen across all the laptops that I've used. 120 Hz refresh rate, 3 millisecond response time, 94% NTSC color gamut coverage. That's incredible for gaming, that's incredible for photo editing. So it does a lot of things really, really well. Really great response time, really great refresh rate, beautiful color accuracy. You're sorted, bruv. In terms of the gaming performance, the Raider Mystic RGB really impressed me with the frames per second that it pushed out. With a graphics-intensive open-world game like The Witcher 3, it averaged at about 70 frames per second. With a similarly intensive game like Tomb Raider, we were getting a benchmark of 100 frames per second. There's also an exclusive gaming mode which optimizes your gaming performance to give you the best frames per second output that you can for that game, which is also just a nice little addition. On top of that, if you launch selected games like PUBG or Dota 2 through the Dragon Center app, it'll give you access to awesome RGB presets that are customized specifically for that game for the most used keys. Now, something from a more critical perspective, Counter-Strike, CSGO, gave me, with vertical sync on, 120 frames per second flat. Not once did it ever drop below that point. Not for a second even, not even a glitch. I was just getting 120 frames non-stop. So I was really, really impressed with the gaming performance. So that pretty much covers all the awesome, really special things distinguishing the Raider Mystic RGB from the original GE63 Raider. But I do want to touch on a couple of things that they've kept the same because they are just awesome. First and foremost is the chassis. The build quality of the Raider Mystic RGB is as good as the previous one, and I just really, And I just really, really enjoy it. It's got a really strong, hard brushed aluminum solid finish with very little bend or flex, not even that I can tell like that. The screen hinge is fixed really tight to the body, so there's no flex on the panel either. The bottom is really strong, sturdy plastic, which I know a lot of people don't like, but I have no problem with it, and I think it looks and feels really cool. On top of that, they've kitted out the GE63 Raider Mystic RGB with Cooler Boost 5, which means it has 7 heat pipes, 2 fans, and 4 fins. This puppy outright refuses to go above 65 degrees. It refuses. It will not do it. 4 hours of gaming, editing, the whole weekend, nonstop, it just won't get hot. It's amazing. In terms of connectivity, we have 2 USB 3 ports as well as an SD card reader, which I thought was a really nice little touch. On the left-hand side, we have a LAN port, we have an HDMI port, another USB 3, we have a Thunderbolt, we have USB-C, and we have a headphone and a microphone jack. Regarding the sound, it features the exact same giant speakers as the previous Raider model, and they still stay downward firing, which I'm not crazy about. The sound is actually pretty decent, and you can kind of equalize it and change it and adjust it to your ears specifically through the Nahimic app, because it does distort at slightly higher volume. So you have the option to toy with that a little bit. Just a couple of little extra touches aside from all the things we've mentioned so far that I'm really glad they kept around with the new Raider Mystic RGB are those dedicated hardware buttons, the one that allows you to turn the auto cool boost on, so it just bumps up the fan's RPM to their max and just gives you a really decent cool. The other one is the hardware button that allows you to cycle through your SteelSeries RGB keyboard presets. So those two things are really useful, and I'm really glad they kept them. And lastly is the secondary function key RGB preset, which is just so cool. It's so cool. You hold down the function key, and then the other keys that respond to having the function key held down in light up, which I just love. It's just such an ingenious, clever little touch. I'm a big fan of it. So definitely something to keep your eyes on, because A, it's hard to miss. And B, if you're going to buy yourself a new laptop, you might as well future-proof and get an 8th generation i7 processor, because that's just going to serve you better in the long run. And lastly, RGB, people. RGB. Okay, I'm done. Get out of here. Don't forget to hit like. Don't forget to subscribe. Let me know what you think about these ridiculous, awesome RGB lights on the top of this Raider. Oh. And I'll catch you guys next time for another installment of Reality Check. Peace!